Atalanta, Milan, Napoli. I repeat, Atalanta, Milan, Napoli. In that order are the three next games of Serie A. You heard it really well. In the meanwhile, between these games, we also have Bruges and we also have Benfica. We just played, on paper, the easiest game of January. We knew that January would have been decisive. We knew how difficult January would have been. We had one opportunity to play an easy game, even if it was a Derby della Mole. That is always a special game, but on paper, against one of the worst Torino of the era, Cauro, we threw it away. Because that's the thing. We threw it away. We threw it away again and again and again and again. If we're looking at the draws in Serie A for Juventus and only speaking about the Italian competition, we see that we already have 12 draw on 19 games. 12 draw on 19 games. And one of the worst stats in all these draws is that 6 times we were leading on these 12 and 6 times we were able, in a way or in another, to throw it away. Ciao Juventini of the world, my name is Giuseppe, welcome back on the channel. I hope you are all doing well. It's the post-game Torino Juve. For the people that do not know the result, lucky you, because that means that you didn't watch the game. 1-1 is the end result. After a beautiful start, especially with the goal of Kenan Yildiz at the 8th minute, well, it's a copy-paste. It's a Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V. It was one of the titles that I already used, I believe, in the last game. I believe the one against Milan or the one of Fiorentina. I don't remember, but anyway, I could have just taken one of the last games. Just take it, put it there, asking AI or asking whatever, ChatGPT or whatever, to change the name of the opponent, and we go with the same things. Now, there are a few things that I didn't like in the game of yesterday, in the moment of Juventus, and I will try to list it down. If you didn't yet, please put a maximum of like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because now we start. The first thing that I don't like, of course, is the press conference post-game of Thiago Motta that tell us at the microphones we dominated, but we were not aggressive enough. Look, I would accept that one against Roma at match day 3. I would accept that one possibly at match day 4 against Empoli when we saw a 0-0 and a 0-0. I would even accept it against Napoli 0-0 in our home, but at a certain moment we were dominating, but we were not aggressive enough. It's something that cannot happen at match day 20, even if it's the 19th, because we need to recuperate that game on Tuesday against Atalanta. It cannot be. It cannot be that you repeat the same mistakes again, that indeed you dominate, but we don't care about domination. I already told you, at the end of the day, what really matters is the victories that you have. In a few minutes, I will tell you that this time it's the 3rd time ever in the history of Juve that we are closing the first 19 games with 0 defeats, which is a record equalizing 2 other Juves, one of Allegri, one of Conte, but there is a huge big difference, and I will tell you that. Now he's also adding, we are not happy, and luckily he's adding me, we are not happy, because if we were happy, we would have had a huge big problem. Then what I don't like is when Thiago Motta is saying in front of microphones, look, yes, it's true, we have too many draws, but we only lost 2 times. I don't care. I sincerely don't care. If you're telling me that in 27 games we only lost 2 times, not in Serie A, but if you're looking at all competition, one was against Stuttgart, one was an elimination in a Supercoppa that we could have won, especially with the total disaster of Inter, well, it's absolutely not acceptable. Mr. X is how Thiago Motta has been called today in Gazzetta dello Sport. What about the game? Look, if you're looking at that we dominate but we were not aggressive enough, if you're looking at the heat maps of that first half, it's really eye-opening, because indeed we were dominating, but and all the players of Juve were in our own half, except of a few offensive players, Yildiz, Koopmeiners and Nico Gonzalez, that were flirting with the middle line, and Bangulat was the more advanced player of Juve. All the other ones were in our own half, actually making sure that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players of Torino were in our half. We were dominating, we had the ball possession, but at the end, if you're looking at the domination of the field, the one that has the highest block, it's the one of Torino, it's not the one of Juve. A first half that we already saw a lot of time, with Juventus that was looking 44% on the right side, 36% on the left side, with only 19% in the center of the field. So it's again a Juventus that is playing with the width, trying to go extremely wide, something that we did, neglecting totally the center of the field, and that's something that is absolutely not working, especially if I have in mind a few movements of Kefren Thuram in one of the last games. I believe it was Fiorentina, but also Udinese, where we see that when we attack centrally, it's something that is working better in the second half. If we are looking at the average position, that is much higher from Juve, much lower from Torino, also in terms of where we are playing, because there you see that we start dividing a bit the roles. 38% on the left, 35% on the right, and 27% this time on the center of the field. But it's not enough, because that second half, we see that Juventus is totally unstructured, unorganized, that has no ideas, but is trying just to go for that second goal in a way or in another, blocking when we need to do something. So the domination is there. You see that Juventus, they want to go higher, but from the moment that we should go on target, that we should be really aggressive and showing that green tower, that fino alla fine, or that we want to really win, Juventus that totally disappear. It's like a melting snow in the winter when the sun comes back and the snow disappears. This is Juventus. You are looking again at the pattern of that game, something that is totally unacceptable, because how many times did we say it? Juventus goes, Juventus scores, Juventus gives the possession to the opponent. And I can understand that in the next few minutes after you score, the opponent, they have a reaction more of nerves because they want to come back. But this is something that is recurrent, and at a certain moment you need to really pay attention to that, because you give them the belief that it's happening. Like the last minutes of sometime the first half, sometime the second half, sometime in both. In this case it was the first half, where we see that we give them back again the belief that they can do something, and they do. And they do. If you go back in the watch along of yesterday, you will see that beautiful smile, that energy, that celebration of the goal of Yildiz started really to disappear with the minutes, understanding the alarm signs, because we were able to see it, me doing the watch along, but also in the chat. The vibes were absolutely not the same anymore. It went away because we knew that it could happen, and it happens. But what is absolutely not acceptable for the game of yesterday is when you see that you enter the second half and Torino, they understood that they could have done that 2-1 and not Juve. So that's where I'm asking, yes, Thiago Motta, when you say we dominated but we were not aggressive enough, what did you say during these 15 minutes at disposal? Even if the time that you walk in, the time that you walk out, that someone goes to do the PP, you probably have 8 minutes, but these 8 minutes needs you. You need them to show what the team needs to do. You cannot go with too much tactic. You can show one example, two examples, but the rest is motivation in this case. And when you go up in the field again on the second half against that Torino, and you give them the possibility to show them that they had a fantastic, beautiful pep talk and not you, there we have a huge problem. And then I told you, a totally unorganized, disorganized, not beautifully structured, without ideas Juve that was, yes, trying to go up on the field, trying maybe with a miracle to do something, but that miracle didn't happen. Can we speak about other things that I didn't like? Yes, the game of Koopmeiners. The game of Koopmeiners, I believe yesterday was the worst one, but I said that the last time against Milan. I believe I said that exactly the same thing against Fiorentina, and every time we go towards, and this time it's the worst, and this time it's the worst, and this time in the worst, where will it stop? Yesterday, if you want a bit of stats of Coop, one shot, a sloppy one, centrally, it was not that sloppy, but it was really extremely central on the goalkeeper, so one shot, one on target, two final touches or final third entry, so he entered only twice into that box. Touches 42, and he's far from the top. For example, if you're looking at the three midfielders, Douglas Luiz 92 touches, Kefren Thuram 73, he touches the ball only 42 times. And if we're looking at how many times he was able to convert that ball in something positive. Well, 21 times he was able to do a successful pass on 23. 23 attempts on passes of 21 were successful, so 91. The accuracy is there. But what about the other balls? Well, 42 touches, only 23 passes means that you lost a lot of balls. Possession lost 11 times. Dribbles, 0 succeeded on 1. Only 1 attempt for Koopmeiners. The duels, 7 duels, only 1 won. And then you will tell me, Beppe, but he's going on pressing. He's the first one that presses, the first that is helping defensively. Well, when we are looking at the stats, for example, tackles, no tackles. So there is, yes, maybe a first pressing in terms of showing that you want to press, but then nothing is happening because also defensively nothing was happening. If you're looking at the fouls that he's committing, maybe to stop a positive transition from the other side, well, we see that he committed only 1 foul and he didn't win any foul. The stats of Coop are a disaster. And don't tell me, please, that it is about the wrong position on the field on playing that number 10 position, because yesterday he didn't play as a number 10. If you're looking at the heat map, go back, you will see the heat maps of Koopmeiners. He didn't play as a 10. He played everywhere, trying to touch the ball everywhere, but he was not as a number 10. I didn't see him as a number 10. And even if you tell me, yes, Beppe, but because he's playing as a number 10, he's looking for his position because he's never receiving ball, because we are not playing central, I can even agree that it's not a perfect position for him. But the problem is that when he's touching the ball, he's missing elementary things. He's missing basic things. And this is something that I cannot accept from Koopmeiners. I can accept and I can share the blame, or I can even totally blame a coach to not use him perfectly, but I cannot defend him when the ball is coming and you cannot control a ball. When the ball is coming and you're not able to find a man that is at 2 meters from you, these are the things that are absolutely not acceptable. The game of Koopmeiners was yesterday a total disaster, especially because he's receiving that captain band. He was already vice captain yesterday, receiving that captain band. That didn't help him. It didn't help me at all. Probably even make it worse, because yesterday we went to the worst game of Koopmeiners of the season. Another thing that made me extremely angry is when you're looking at the end game and the stats there and the subs, and you see only Andrea Cambiaso entering at the 71st minute, Timothy Weah entering at the 77th minute. No other changes. You had Rui, Adzic, 2 goalkeepers, and Fagioli on the bench. None of them entered. Of the 3 of them, Cambiaso and Weah entered without really changing the game. Why am I angry about that? You know why? Because injuries can happen. Bremer, Cabal, Milik that is not there, that you were probably expecting a bit more. But it's the problem that we are in the Mercato. We are today the 12th of January and there is no player at Juventus. There is absolutely no player at Juventus, while you knew that January would have been decided, that you knew that we were not doing really well. And on top of that, if I'm listening to the words of Cristiano Giuntoli, and he's telling me I like the players of Araujo and Colomoni, they are good players, Mercato is starting now. No, we are not aligned, Giuntoli. The Mercato is not starting now. The Mercato started on the 2nd of January, where 1 player should have been there. Then the second, maybe on the 5th of January or the 6th of January, maybe when we come back from Riyadh. But at the moment, probably the first one should have been there and the second one would have been in Torino, ready to play against Atalanta, because against Atalanta, that we are playing on Tuesday, don't expect any new face. It is impossible. That means that the player is coming tomorrow, doing the medicals tomorrow, and already playing against Atalanta away from home on Tuesday. Impossible, so forget about it. And if a player is not arriving before the game of Milan, we have a huge big problem, even more than we have at the moment, because here we have a problem, especially if we are hearing and listening to the rest of the conversation in microphones of Giuntoli, which is saying, speriamo che in settimana ci sono già novità positive. We hope that this week we have some positive news. And no, not some positive news. I hope really that there is a player, not a positive news. I don't care about positive news. I really need a player now. At least one in defense, because we have a huge problem. And you want to blame Savona on the goal? You want to blame Kalulu? You want to blame Gatti? You want to blame Weston McKennie? Do it, huh? But these players are playing game in, game out, game in, game out, game in, game out, 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes. at a certain moment they are not robots. At a certain moment it's impossible. Also because they play knowing that there is absolutely no other stuff. It's really difficult. Can we speak about some positive things? It's really difficult to find some positive things, but of course, Yildiz is one of the positive things of especially that start of 2025, a goal in Riyadh that unfortunately we couldn't celebrate enough. A goal yesterday against Torino that probably will not be able to celebrate enough. And it's really a pity because that guy is really carrying Juventus with his goals, but also the only one that is giving me hope that something can happen. Regardless if he's playing on the left, that he's playing on the right or centrally, is someone that really you say, luckily we have Kenan Yildiz. Luckily, this guy probably understands much better than all the other ones what Juventus means, what it is to win. If you're looking at the last whistle of the referee of the game, you see him going really on the knees because he was desperate, because he really wanted to win, because he knew that the effort that he did to score that goal, to open the goal, and to continue to try to play, well, it was not enough to give a win back to Juventus, which is really, really sad. Another thing that I liked was Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz I liked. I didn't love, I am not, but I liked. For the first time we saw him more than a few minutes. We saw him, I believe, 90 minutes. He played the entire game, of course. More the game was going, more he was going back on the field, more he was tired. He has not an optimal physical condition to have that energy for the entire game. What I would blame him is at the moment he's slow. He's a bit slow. I want a bit faster Doogie. But you see that the player has quality, and I believe that at a certain moment we'll need to insist on that player. Look, we are playing against Atalanta. We gave the vice-captain band to Koop, it didn't work. We gave him the captain band, it didn't work. Next Tuesday, so this Tuesday, we play against his ex-team. That is at the moment there on top of the ranking. They are not first, but are, I believe, first, second, third, I don't care, I don't know. Playing against them, is it right to play Koopmeiners there in that game, in the moment that we are in? Or you just go with the Thuram Locatelli and Douglas Luiz? I'm asking that question. I'm asking you that question. Let me know what you think. Bangula didn't do bad neither. Bangula is one of the positive notes really of that part of the season. Now, one thing is true. 33 points. It's the worst Juve of the last 14 years. Only Del Neri was able at that moment, after 90 games, to do worse with 31 points. 11 points is the gap from Napoli that still need to play, so it can even be 14 points, and we are the 12th of January. Only 7 wins is a negative record after 19 games of Serie A. The last time that this happened was in 98-99 in a season of Lippi that then gave his dismissal. He gave it the resignation. 12 are the record draws in a single 19 games of Juve. The last time that we did like that was 11 draws, and it was in 65-66. So 12 are a lot. Only 7 wins. 0, and that's the stat that I wanted to tell you, is the 3rd time ever that Juventus, after 19 games, was able to be unbeaten. The first time was with Conte in 11-12, but we had 11 victories. Today we have 7 and 8 draws. And then with Max Allegri, 17 victories, only 2 draws. And that's what I'm telling you. If you keep repeating, yes, but we only lost 2 times in all competition, we never lost in Serie A, good, fantastic. But if you have only 7 wins in Serie A, it's absolutely not enough. We are going towards a disaster season, being unbeaten, while the other 2, they won the Scudetto. Guys, a lot of negative stats. Now, of course, the debate is Thiago in, Thiago Motta out. What should we do? Motta out, Motta in, Thiago out, Thiago in. Guys, it's early. We started the project. We saw some beautiful things in this season. Unfortunately, these beautiful things are also fading away. They are going away. And instead of progressing, we are really going back. And Thiago Motta has a month of January that is extremely crucial against really difficult teams. Atalanta, Milan, Napoli, in that order in Serie A, with Bruges and Benfica in the middle, where we clearly need to wake up, we clearly need to change. And if Thiago Motta is telling us we dominated but we were not aggressive enough, well, that's the key. Be aggressive. Put a maximum of like if you didn't yet. Please continue to subscribe. Grazie, forza. Juve.